Welcome back. How are you doing? I hope you are having a fantastic day. First of all, this synopsis is one of the greatest synopses of all time. Look at this. It's literally just two lines. And so I really love this, but I wanted to see, and I remember reviewing it and I gave it a very, very high star rating. But this time I wanted to see people who hated it and why they hated it because, it's important to find a diverse opinion. I do have to disagree with this though. Knockoff fantasy, absolutely not. Knockoff fantasy in what way? Because we have to really understand this. Knockoff fantasy in what way? Because oftentimes people will say, hey, it's a knockoff of, The Lord of the Rings. But only in terms of external plot, not in specifics. Because you need to pay attention. Let's take the magic system channeling from the Eye of the World. The Lord of the Rings does not really have a very strong magic system. Number one. Number two, its world building is super detailed to a point where 10% of it doesn't even show up in the story. Whereas in this story, the world is purpose built for this particular story. The world exists for this story. The world of the Lord of the Rings exists on its own. The characters are completely different, okay? The characters are completely different, not necessarily in how, the character arcs that they have, however, by how those arcs are approached. Because oftentimes in the Lord of the Rings, you have the ring acting as a literary device, but in the Wheel of Time, so far from what I've read up to book 2, the magic system channeling itself is literally the ring, and it's very interesting and very beautiful because the magic can corrupt, Randall Thor as the protagonist, and that is the same as the ring corrupting Frodo and Boromir and all of these other characters, but I would say here it's done much better. So knockoff would indicate like a Chinese version of the Lord of the Rings, but no, this is the German version of the Lord of the Rings, okay? It's a beautifully constructed story with a very strong plot, brilliant world building, and even better magic system. So to say that the Wheel of Time is just a knockoff implies an inferiority. No, it's actually superior. It's better than the Lord of the Rings. And I know this might be like a lot of people will disagree with this one, but I am observing this so far in book 2. I wouldn't say book 1 is really anywhere near any of the books in the Lord of the Rings. But from what book 2 has shown, if book 3 can keep up with this, and if book 4 can keep up with book 2, if not going so far as to improve upon book 2, then I would say the Wheel of Time would easily outscore the Lord of the Rings. Not necessarily like A Song of Ice and Fire or let's say like Lies of Locke Lamora and so on and so forth, but absolutely 100% the Lord of the Rings. So oftentimes when you say knock off, you are implying inferior product. This is not an inferior product. This is a superior product, okay? It just is. I genuinely disagree with this one so much. I had started skimming a 10-page chapter and said to myself, why the heck are you still reading this? So I'm done. Before I invest another minute into this rambling ass of a novel, I am tapping out. Rambling? Absolutely not. One of the greatest advantages I think The Great Hunt has over The Eye of the World is that this book has a very simple and very needled, straightforward plot. It's not really the sort of plot that meanders a lot, and it is remarkably simple to understand. The Matt's dagger as well as the Horn of Valir had been stolen. Let's get them back from the guy who stole it. And so to say this is a rambling novel, I don't know where that's coming from. In summation, I don't care about anyone in this book. I don't understand that as well, because if you were to pay attention, there are far more, like you essentially get to like the characters. For me, honestly, for Randall Thor, this was the book. This was the book where I fell in love with him. For Nynaeve and for Egwene as well, this was the book where I fell in love with them. I mean, it was not the first book, I guarantee you that. It was this book. It was The Great Hunt. Even Berin, it was this book. So I don't really understand where this is coming from. I genuinely don't understand. So yeah. Anyway, to each their own, I suppose. Brittany says, I would give this book two stars because at least it has a big section where all the women have a plot to themselves for once. Oh yeah, I believe it's Kythern. I forgot the name of the place, but whatever. It was a decent section, I suppose, which is great, particularly when it's women helping each other and being concerned for each other and saving each other and themselves. And Nynaeve and Egwene are turning even more badass. But half of that plot is still devoted to Rand. So yeah, right. Well, Rand is the main protagonist, I believe, until book 3. He still has a good section from what I've heard in book 4. But throughout the entire series, again, from what I've heard, he does not have the greatest or like the majority of the page count. So I think, until he is officially the Dragon Reborn, I would say Rand would continue to have majority of the page count dedicated to him. So yeah, that's generally why. I also really do not understand why Egwene or Min are in love with Rand. They knew him for all of 10 minutes, maybe. Min even less so. As for why they are instantly in love with him, it's really rampant throughout the fantasy genre. There's a ton of obsessive, instant love or instant romance going on where I see you, therefore I love you. Especially if you're the protagonist. I don't know, maybe this is due to, most of fantasy is really intended toward a male audience, or most of fantasy is written by, men themselves. For men. There's just a lot of reasons as to why. But for Rand, I would say also another good reason might be because he's super freaking handsome. Okay? I do have to disagree with this though. Knockoff fantasy? Absolutely not. Overall, this was even more boring than book 1. Freaking no. Man, I find myself disagreeing with every point of this. Okay, no. Book 2 is far more exciting than book 1. The Great Hunt is genuinely far better constructed. It's also much more tight. Can I really say that? Is that how you would communicate this one? Because I'm not sure how to communicate it. But I do know for a fact that The Great Hunt is a much more succinct book. Okay, it's a much more focused book. It doesn't really meander a lot. Okay, The Great Hunt starts immediately, while the journey to Tar Valon, I believe, in the Eye of the World starts much later. It takes upwards of 25,000 words to start that one. Here it's way better. She continues to say in here, the villains are the same simple bigoted evil with a capital E characters. That is true. Absolutely, this is true. I think this is a fair criticism. I don't think the characters of Great Hunt are better because of the villain. I think they're better because of the protagonists. As I said, Egwene and Nynaeve, for the first time in the story, really get to shine. And not only are they training, but they have their own section of the story dedicated to them, and we get to understand and learn about them far better. You have also Randall Thor, who's far better written. Matt, I hope in book 3 he has a better story, but I genuinely hope in book 4 he has to have. By book 4 he has to have, okay? But the point is that, I think the protagonists are far better written in The Great Hunt, but I don't really think it's the villains, because there's just one simple villain, and that's it. Of course, we have Balsamon, the dark one again, so he's a constant villain. But as for the villain of this particular story, yeah, I do agree that he's a very simple villain. You have the White Cloaks involved as well. Those guys look awesome. In the TV show, they look even better. What the heck, man? Anyway, miscommunication and secrecy. Well, yeah, people in the real world are not very eager to blabber out, like to vomit out everything they believe or everything they're thinking. It's very common in dialogue. If you're trying to understand what this is, it's called subtext. It's one of the cornerstones of writing dialogue. Okay, but it's really frustrating how trifecta of idiots kept damn it. Okay, anyway, good review, I suppose. Yeah, to each their own. Anyway, it's been 35 minutes of blabbering into this mic. I'm going to have to stop this one. It's complete madness. These people, I completely disagree with all of them, except the villain, except the point about the villain. And I do have to agree that the women in the Wheel of Time, they're not necessarily the most detailed, and they are very quick to fall in love with Randall Thor. I don't know why, but you could give a lot of reasons, or you could analyze this for a lot of different points. But it is what it is. I don't really think about it much because I genuinely couldn't care less about the romances involved. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider subscribing and hit that like button. There's more coming on the way, more Wheel of Time content. Have a nice day. Bye.